everybody, it's Robert here, the Racin-Teach, and guess what I've got in my garage today? You're not going to believe this. It's the first one in California, and I know you guys have seen the Tenways bikes reviews. Well, I've got another Tenways bike, the new AGO T, which is similar to the X, mid-drive, belt drive, the whole 9 yards. There's the box right there. Check that out. I'll get it right here. So you see it's a step-through model. Now that's a silhouette, but it's a pretty good darn copy of that. So we're going to go ahead and open up this box and show you all the great stuff that's inside. So boom, there it is. There's the box. Real heavy duty box as usual. They make sure that packing, I mean, this guy is thick. When you have to cut it up and recycle it, you're going to go through a couple blades. They make sure that this bike is going to come out to you safely. There she is, package. I mean, this is probably one of the best packing jobs I think I've seen when it comes to bikes ready to go here. Good styrofoam blockage, no movement inside the box, very well protected. Everything's, I mean, just look at that. It's definitely going to give you, hopefully, a very straight and scratch-free bike. They definitely don't waste money when it comes to this. So this is a really well, nicely packaged bike. I'm going to get this thing out of here. As you know, these things, this one I think weighs a little over 30 something pounds. I'll get the specs exactly in a minute because I got a scale. And it does take about 2 people to get out of here and another set of hands to get all this foam out of here. But once I do, we'll get this bike out of here and go from there. So there you go. Check that out. Okay, with the help of a friend, I got this thing out of the box. Usually when I'm doing it by myself, I just lay the box down on the side, slide the bike out. It's definitely easier with 2 people. The bike probably weighs close to like, I'd say about 45 pounds or so. We're gonna go ahead and throw it on a scale once it's built, but check out the padding on this thing. And everything's pretty much ready to go. But with all these bike assemblies, you wanna make sure that you just go through everything. You wanna make sure that all the nuts and bolts are tight, and not over tightened, but tight and torqued properly. You also want to make sure you set up the stem correctly. You also want to make sure that everything's preloaded. The bearings on the stem are preloaded correctly. The seat is mounted correctly. Make sure all the bolts are snug, okay? Even though they're mostly 3/4 of the way assembled, they're still going to have sometimes something's going to be missed. It's not going to be totally tight, and you just never know. So always make sure you double check it. But once again, check out this thing. You see no paint, right? And that's a great sign of a good packing job. So once again, you're going to have pretty much hopefully a scratchless bike unless you do it when you're building it, which can happen. Anyhow, I'm going to get to work on this thing and we'll get the next pictures up. All right, one of the best parts about Tenways products is they give you really quality tools to build the bike. I mean, these are talking like shop quality wrenches. Really nice packaging. Everything's protected. They even give you a pump to pump up the tires. Standard reflectors and whatnot. And down here you got pedals and the charger. So make sure you don't throw the boxes away. Also came with another box here, which I'm gonna assume is the battery, but I won't know until I open that up. But anyway, so make sure you go through the boxes carefully. Don't toss anything out thinking it's filler material. But yeah, their tools are really nice quality. Pair cutters are your best friend when it comes to putting a bike apart. Cuts the tape, cuts the zip ties. Always do the zip ties first on the wheels, get that off the frame. Careful when you do that because the fender's attached, as you can see there. We'll unwrap that. The wheel has one more, it looks like. We made sure this wheel isn't going anywhere. All right, so standard practice in the bike world. The wheel is stuck in the crank arm there. Crank arm's always up. They usually go between a couple spokes, so make sure you don't tweak your wheel pulling it off the bike. All this stuff here, I'm going to leave that on for now. It protects the disc brake. All the cardboard's going to go in the recycle bin. Now I'll go around with my cutters and get rid of all the zip ties. And actually the tape too makes breaking everything super easy. Take that all off. That's the handlebar was taped to that. This is protecting your fork leg, your brake caliper. Brake calipers at the bottom. I'll leave that for right now. The seat. And in this case here, the seat's loose. It does clamp back here, so I'm gonna have to look for that hardware. It's a different little frame design this time. And now we start seeing the wonderful color. And I already like this color. I think it matches my car. It's a little lighter green. Very nice green. Let's see what we got here. The rack cover. Oh, and the rack is integrated into the frames. This is pretty cool. Make a nice big trash pile. And a zip tie over here. That's to keep the cranks from moving. So I'm going to go ahead and zip that. That's zip tied to the wheel. And let's see what else I got over here. Now I can move this guy around. One very cool thing, people often ask, oh, where's the keys for everything? Most manufacturers now are zip tying the keys to a cable. So if you see that zip tie, don't cut it yet. Go ahead and leave that zip tie. It's usually a black zip tie. Leave it on to the end. And that way you know your keys are always here on the bike. You got the last of the zip ties. Everything else is tape and foam. And you're going to also notice that the main tube here is, I'm thinking that's a kickstand. And there you go, we got a kickstand here. And I'm actually going to put the kickstand on first, and there's a reason why I'll show you in a bit. So put that there. And get all the foam off. Here we go. Ooh, that's a pretty looking bike. I'm going to go ahead and move it this way so you can get a nice view of it. So that is a very pretty bike. I love that. For the rack support here, it's part of the frame. Got a separate little rack on top of that. Should be able to fit all types of panniers on there with no problem. Seats. Looks like it is an Essenza. I want to say Seya Royale. So it's going to be a universal seat. I'm going to get the rest of this stuff together here. Handlebar stuck in the fork. One more pieces here. And there we go. The battery's not in it. That's why the bike was light. And I'm going to go ahead and get this guy up on two wheels so I can finish the rest of the assembly. So I'm going to lean that right there. And here we go. Okay, folks, so one of the first things I said I was going to do is put this kickstand on. And one of the reasons why is because most people don't have work stands in their garages. And because these bikes tend to be heavier than a lot of work stands can handle, even if you do have one, I show you this little trick I do. So the first thing I do is I actually put the kickstand on. And this guy has a sandwich plate here. Be super careful, don't touch the brake rotor with your fingers. A lot of people do, and then they do it accidentally, or they don't do it, and they don't realize it's a big deal. But you actually get oils on the disc, and then next thing you know, it starts squeaking, and you wonder why it's squeaking and squealing, because you get oil on there. So try not to touch that brake rotor with anything, okay? And if you do touch it and you get oil on it, get a clean cloth with some rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, or you can go to a bike shop and get some of their disc brake cleaner, spray it down before you apply the brake. Key, do not apply the brake pads. Don't let the brake pads touch the oil. Otherwise, you end up buying brake pads. The cool thing is they're using Tektro hydraulic brakes now, so you can get those brake pads anywhere. Most shops will carry them in stock. You just have to take it out to see which one it is. Anyways, this uses 2 plates, an outer plate and inner plate. It's threaded in there. Always start all hardware by hand, okay? Get it started by hand, and then tighten it down with a wrench later. Now, they give you all the tools you need to build this bike in the toolkit. Me, personally, I have my favorite tools that I use. I use a star wrench here. I've had this star wrench forever. There's a reason why I like using it, because it's quick, it's straight, it's not a ball end either, it's straight end, and this prevents you from rounding out hardware. With the ball end, if you're not pushing right and you're not using it correctly, you will actually strip the hardware. Now this hardware is actually pretty good, but some hardwares tend not to be. And you notice while I'm here, I've got this tool. It pretty much fits everything. So there I am, giving everything kind of a little snug. Now the brakes, I will usually, and that's cool, they actually did this right. Sometimes these things get in the way of these bolts trying to adjust the brakes. So when I need to come in here and adjust anything, this is actually the adapter plate. Here's where I would adjust the brakes to center the caliper in the rotor. But everything's right there. You notice I just give everything a little snug, right? Done deal. It's even got a nice little light system. That uses a wrench, so I'll have to grab a wrench for that. Kickstand's on for a reason. What I'm going to do next is throw the front wheel on and get the bike up. And then I can start doing everything else. And before you know it, this bike is ready to go. Okay, so I did a little bit of reverse here. I'm actually going to throw the handlebars on. And there's a reason why I'm going to throw these on first, okay? One, I need to get them out of the way so I can put the fender on. Two, there's an interesting little caveat with the handlebars, okay? Everything is pre-wired, everything's on here, all right? And what you're going to notice is, I'm going to slip these guys in there. You have to remove the bolts that are on the stem, they're pre-installed. But the front plate here is actually mounted on the handlebars, and there's a cable going through it already. So it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Make sure it's going to disorient you like when you're trying to put it on. But basically the display is loose and slides around on the bar. So you're going to need to like kind of sample the handlebar where you think it's going to go, and then go ahead and move the display out of the way, and then it will all make sense once you see it. But yeah, it was a little bit of a challenge here to figure that out. It does have, the handlebar does have alignment marks, so you'll be able to get the handlebar centered in there according to what the factory specs want you to do. And of course, after that, you can go ahead and adjust them however you want. So I always start with one by hand. Like I said, all my hardware goes in one by hand. Once you get one in, you actually can go ahead and just put the rest in there. Be careful when you take these out. Make sure that there's a little washer on them, and it's super easy to lose that washer. It's not going to be, I shouldn't say this, it's not going to be totally horrible if you lose one, but it's definitely better if you have all of it. So right now what I'm going to do is, see if I can actually show you this. I'm going to move the bike a little bit. All right, so what will happen here is this has got a little circle and some lines here for marking here, and then see that wire. This is the wire for the display unit here. Okay, so hopefully you guys see that. See that right here, right here. All right. So anyhow, that can only go so far up. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that circle to the lower part here, and then try to center as best I can, and then cinch it down, and then make final adjustments later. So right now this is just all rough adjustment. Once I get it where I think I want it, once I get the bike up on 2 wheels, I'll sit on it, I'll rotate the bars where I want them, and then tighten everything down to spec. Okay, and yeah, I recommend, if you can get one, get a little Allen torque wrench. You can get them at the bike shops. You don't need a lot of torque on these things. You don't have to be super tight, because if you do, you'll actually crush the bars. So, you know, my wrench goes flying away of my hands. It does it all the time. I'm bound to drop this thing at least 3 or 4 more times before I'm done. All right, so now the bars are in place, and there you go. So you'll see that there's the control goes here, and you slide that back down, and everything's gonna be nice and tidy. But it is kind of a little weird when you're first setting it up, okay? So keep that in mind. So here we go with the fender now. And the fender is gonna have the rear strut. Now, you guys have to realize is that these things are, you're gonna have to bend and manipulate them where you want them, okay? They're not gonna be straight right out of the box. So what you do is, it's loose enough, it's got some play, and what you're gonna do is, as you mount it, you're actually going to put it where it needs to go. So I always start with the top mount first. Bolt's already in the fork, and it looks like, based on this fork design, it's going to go in the front of the fork, like so, and then has a locking nut and a washer in the back, and that's that. Now, these struts for the rear of the fender, they can rotate them so that the Allen, the head, is to the outside, so that way you can adjust this accordingly. And it has a little L bracket here on the fork, and that's where you're going to do a lot of the adjustments to get them to fit properly. So what I'm going to do is loosen this bolt right here, and then I can fine-tune the adjustments here just by loosening the other bolt, but I'll get that in there first. Be super careful with this. There's not a lot of thread to work with, so do not force it with a tool. Make sure it grabs by hand, and don't over tighten it with the tool. There's only like 3 threads there, okay? So it's got a good chance of stripping it. The other side is the same situation. Make sure that the Allen key is facing outside. You rotate the head. Bolt here needs to be removed as well. This, and then what I was telling you in manufacturing, some are actually tighter than others. This one was actually all the way in, whereas the other one wasn't. So, and now a little bit of force here. It's going to require a little bit of force. We're actually going to hold the bike and get that one started too. And there we go. Now fender's in place. So now the fender will have to be manipulated a bit once the tire's on. So when the tire gets on, then you can readjust and fine tune everything. So that's going to be our next step. All right, here's the wheel here. Now, it's a lot of stories on the internet, and people do things different ways. But here's the nut, and here's the quick release on the brake rotor side. A lot of people who ride disc brake bikes have actually started switching these around. I personally do that. This way I have less chance of touching the brake rotor when I'm taking the tire off and on, okay? So I do that. Makes more sense to me when I do it. The other thing to do is make sure it's not tighten all the way. You actually need to have it kind of loose, because what you do is once you put this in the fork, put the fork down, you turn this till it gets a little snug, back it down about quarter turn, and then you cam it, okay? This is what actually locks it. Don't super tighten it this way, and then try to flip that. You're gonna break this. All right, so keep that in mind when you're doing this. It's gonna go on the bike. Make sure you remove, there's a disc brake spacer, and when you're looking for the quick release, it's actually on the fork block that comes out of the bike. Last time I was like, where's the quick release? Where's the quick release? And then I saw it down on the fork, on the block. So this comes in every bike from Tenways, and the quick release is on this, and this is what keeps the fork from being crushed if it ever happened during shipments. So there's a spacer in the disc brakes. You pull that little spacer out, and then to throw a wheel on the bike, I like to grab it from the stem, pick it up, and this way I can see that everything from above lines up. The fender is way out of whack, and I need to loosen the quick release a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I can do that here. And in that case, it came all the way out, so that's fine. There's a lot of CPSC safety stuff on there. So these have a really big lock, and you don't want the wheel in case you lose a spring, which I'm doing right now. I have an issue with the spring. Oh, this is a tight fit fork too. So this nut goes in till it's snug. What I start to do is I put the quick release about halfway, and once it gets snug and I got the wheel kind of centered about halfway, then I'll go ahead and use the fork in my palm and lock it up. So I've got to do some major work with this fender, and then the cool thing is now the bike is on its own. I come put the kickstand on it, and we're set. We're good to go. Don't pay attention to the mess behind, but let's focus on the bike. I had a big issue with this fender. When they cinched it together at the factory, they put the bars through here and tightened these little screws up really tight, and the fender was completely tweaked and not in alignment. I had to take a 3mm, which is not in the toolkit, break these two loose, and the fender slid straight over where it needed to go. So now I can manipulate everything I need to be to line it up. So keep that in mind. If your fender's going on and it's not looking straight, that's the problem. All right, there she is. She's all together now. Looks really good. I really like this bike. I like this green. I haven't put the battery in yet. Just want to show you to make sure this is what all the contacts will look like. Pedals, when you put the pedals on, look for the stickers. That'll tell you which pedal goes where. And you pedal it in backwards. So far, everything's looking really good. I just got to tighten a couple things up, tighten the fender up, reset the handlebars. This now comes with an adjustable stem. So one of the biggest questions a lot of people ask is, I want to sit closer. I want the bars closer to me. I want to sit upright more. This here will allow you to do that. Checking the preload. If you ride the bike and you have wobble in the front end, keep these loose right here. Loosen these two bolts. Underneath this little rubber cover is your preload bolt. And what you're going to do is you're going to turn this clockwise. It's going to tighten down. It's going to pull the stem down and tighten it up. Now, you don't want it so tight that you can't turn. You just want it to the point where there's some resistance and there's no click, and there's no wobble. And what you do to check that is put your hands right here and you actually push on it, or you use the brake. You can roll the bike and brake and feel it. If you feel movement here, that means this needs to be preloaded down more. It needs to press down. Otherwise, bike looks really good. Looking forward to riding it. This is a Baofeng mid-drive motor, and it's got a internal, there's the drive motor in the back, okay? So, I'm sorry, that's not the drive motor. Duh, I forgot which bike I'm dealing with. There's your motor, Baofeng mid-drive motor, and an internal geared hub with, and this is what makes this bike so much special, a Gates belt drive system. This is such a really cool bike. It really is a really nice bike. And this is the AGO T, the first one here in the state of California. And I'm looking forward to riding it. Well, I can't ride it. So I'm going to find somebody who wants to ride it. So if you're interested in riding it, let me know, because I have it. I'm here in the valley, San Fernando Valley. I'm going to be at Ciclavia. I'm going to be a pedestrian. If you call me that, I'll be in a pedicab, I think. In the pedicab. I can't pedal right now. And this doesn't have a throttle, so I can't use it as a scooter. This is a full pedal assist bike. All right, so thanks for following it. Things that look good on it. Schwalbe tire. CST tires. My bad. Scratch that part. CST tires all the way around. Fendered, racked seat. And this thing actually has a suspension seat post on it. Kind of threw me there. So you got a suspension seat post already on the bike. You got front suspension fork made by Suntour. You've got a twist shift system here. Comes standard with a bell. Tektro hydraulic brakes. And the one thing I really don't like on the bike, and I haven't tried it yet because it's not nighttime yet, But I will say this, I'm not a fan of this light system, but it's a good daytime running light. So I will give it the benefit of that. But for visibility, we'll see how it shows, because that's one of the big feedbacks that I told them. I said, we need a real headlight that actually projects further down the road. The nice thing is the bars have plenty of room to add an aftermarket light. So if you really want some more light, this bike should fit a good wide variety of people with that adjustable stem, step through design. So I just had knee surgery, so here we go. Like, I can actually lift my knee through there. So this would be a really cool option for people with limited mobility. I like the rack system. According to the rack system here, there it is right there. It's rated at 25 kilograms. It's quite a bit of weight when you think about it. It's a really cool color green, matches my car. I might keep this bike, we'll see. Anyhow, so you can find this bike at the Tenways website. I'll put a link there if you want a direct link to it. This is the AGO T E. And like I said, don't mind the mess in the back. I've got projects going all over the place right now. So, but I need to get this bike built and get it here and get it on the tube. All right, thanks for following, guys. Subscribe, ask me questions. I'll give you some feedback on the bike. I need to find a guinea pig to ride it because I need to follow doctor's orders and not pedal. But I might cheat. We'll see. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.